All right, so you can start. So
Good evening, everybody. I'm Onobu Jonathan by name. I had my GIS foundation at University of Lagos. I'm delighted and proud to be part of this section this evening to discuss how GIS can impact election and enable the electoral umpire to take decision with complete confidence. Next slide. In the course of this discussion, we'll be looking at the introduction, the objectives, what is GIS, impact of GIS on election management, impact of GIS on the electoral function of candidates and political parties, implementation of GIS in elections, conclusion, and brief recommendations. Now, election management happens to be one of the key areas of government activity that help to define the future of any country. It is through this process that those who manage the affairs of the country are recruited into leadership positions. If the recruitment process is faulty, they come for it. But if it goes well, the country will be better for it. In Nigeria, it is common knowledge that the process has always been faulty all along. And this is usually the major bane of our society today. One reason for this state of affairs has been the poor planning of the electoral processes due to mainly the inadequacy of relevant data. Relevant data can assume many different forms, one of which is map out. Mapping the Nigeria future will therefore entail the processes of all election management activities into clear and concise map and report that will guide decision makers. As part of our interaction section this evening, this introduction, what do we understand from there? When the foundation is faulty, there is nothing expert can do about it. When data, there is nothing any analyst can do about it. And instead of planning with wrong data, from our learning over this, it's better we don't even plan at all. So, Mr. Ebenezer, from the introduction, what do you deduce? Mr. Ebenezer, can you hear me?
hello, sir. I can hear you now.
Next slide.
All right, so
I think it's an interact. Okay. Introduction continue. In the present time and age, obtaining relevant data has been made easier through technological breakthrough in remote sensing and GIS. So the problem today is no longer that of lack of data, but knowing which data to acquire. In other words, for the electoral body to achieve their statutory mandate of conducting free and credible election, there is a need to adopt various forms of technologies, of which the use of GIS is pertinent. In the course of this presentation, therefore, effort will be made to highlight the benefit of GIS and how it can be deployed to advantage of election management in Nigeria. Next slide. Learning objectives. At the end of this presentation, participants should be able to define GIS, identify the components and functions of GIS, mention the different application area of GIS, identify the impact of GIS on election management. These are key areas we are going to focus on. The takeaway for everybody that joined this section today, you'll be able to know, understand what is GIS, and how GIS can be able to be linked to election management in Nigeria. Now, what is GIS? There's an acronym which is Geographic Information System. What is the G? The G stands for geography, that is geographic. Any phenomenon that can be named, that can be described, that is tied to a particular location, that have a geospatial element, is geographic. Then the I has to do with information. These are the process and procedures involved in transforming the spatial data, the geographic data, into meaningful format. Then what is the system? The same has to do with different components coming together to achieve a particular aim. And in the course of understanding GIS, we have to look at one of the major promoters of GIS in the world, which is the Environmental Systems Institute. In 2017, they explained GIS as a system that lets us visualize, question, analyze, and interpret data that understand relationship, pattern, and trend. In the course of this definition of S3, what do we understand that GIS has been able to make a difference compared to the past period? It's a system that lets us visualize. That is, I see to mean I understand. Instead of presenting data in the Excel spreadsheet, information that comes in with a geospatial element have to be formatted that will give in such a way that it will give us a visual benefit. And that is why one of the key importance of GIS is a system that enables us to see. We see location, that will enable us to interpret the patterns and trend. So one of the major institutions that we always make reference to is the S3. And we have been able to see how they implement GIS. Next slide. Now, what is GIS? Continue. For us to be able to operate GIS conveniently, GIS comes under a particular umbrella, and that is the component of GIS. We have 5 major components of GIS. We will see all these components and how are they related to election management in Nigeria. This particular component will be an interactive session for all of us. We are beginning with data. What is data in GIS? How many types of data do we have in GIS? What are the categories of data we have in GIS? How are they related to election management in Nigeria? We have 2 types of data in GIS: spatial data and non-spatial data. Spatial data are those data that have a spatial element, that is, they have X and Y coordinates. They can be tied to a particular location. Non-spatial data are those data that describe the spatial data. How are they related to election management in Nigeria? Each polling unit in Nigeria have a location. There is a location for each of our polling. How do we transform them into a spatial data? We must have the X and Y coordinates for all the polling units, which make them have a spatial element. Now, what are the non-spatial data? These are the one of the spatial data. And for example, wherever the location of polling units is in Nigeria, there is a description to that polling unit. That is the non-spatial data. Now, going down to the categories of data in GIS, we have point, we have line, and we have polygon. Which of the election data can be used in terms of these categories? The polling unit can be represented with point. Whatever operation we do in GIS revolve around this data: the point, the line, the polygon. What can we represent in GIS, in election management, using the line, the road network? How are they related to election management? Distance analysis in relation to the polling unit. At this point, we have identified the location of our polling unit. We have gotten a description for our polling unit. Now, how do we get to this polling unit? Line can be used to represent the data needed to do a distance analysis. Now, what about the people as a component of GIS? We have the promoters of GIS. We have the GIS analysts. We have the software developers. We have the hardware developers. We have the analysts. The users, the end users of GIS outputs. This forms the people of GIS. All of us in this section today that are privileged to be here to have this interactive section, we are part of people as a component of GIS. Now we have different disciplines, in as much as we are all within the umbrella of GIS. The software developers, they are still part of people as a component of GIS. There are data analysts, field data assistants. These are people that go to fields to collect data. They fall under people as a component. We have the hardware developers. The GPS we use in collecting our data, there are people that are responsible for their development. They fall within the hardware developers. The system we use, the digitizers we use, they fall as a component. Then what are methods? Methods has to do with methodology. There are different application areas. The way a pastor will use GIS is different from the way a telecom engineer will use GIS. The way an NGO will use GIS is far different from the way a medical doctor or a health institution will use GIS. The way a banking sector will use GIS is far different from what an election manager will use GIS for. Now, how, in relation to election management, what are the procedures and approach, and how can election manager use this GIS? Most of us have been following the trend since last year in the course of the planning of election in Nigeria. There are some states that have additional polling units. There are some states that has to do the planning of election management in the Niger Delta is different from the planning of election management in the northern part of the country. This method is part of how an institution that is responsible for managing election has to come in to understand the application areas. In the course of S3 definition, we look at the patterns and trends. I was privileged to be part of a field data assistant in Ekiti State where they have to establish additional polling units. How do they understand the fact that additional polling unit is needed? GIS in election management enable us with the aid of the collection of all the coordinates within a particular ward, local government and state to perform an overlay analysis and identify where there are gaps. These gaps have to be studied in relation to the population of people and the nearest polling units. And that will now necessitate the fact that we hear about additional polling units because GIS has enabled us to visualize, identify some gaps. Now, in the course of election material delivery, you have to understand the terrain. The Niger Delta is different from the northern part of the country. And in the course of this logistic management, you can hear from INEC that, oh, there's a need for us to route, there is a need for us to hire buses. That is, they have identified where there are road network, buses, cars needed to be used. There are places that they have identified as a riverine area that boats have to be used. Now, identification of polling units around the state, local government and wards. You cannot bear with me that INEC have displayed voters register in all the polling units. For election management, how is it related to GIS? It helps us to identify where is my polling unit. Where is my polling unit can be translated into maps that can be viewed. Then the hardware on computer system today, and because of this interactive section, is part of the hardware. We go to the field to collect data. We need hardware like GPS. Then software. In the course of this discussion, we'll be looking at maps. Some of these maps were formatted with the aid of GIS. And one of the major user-friendly GIS software we are having today is GIS software. Next slide. Now, impact of GIS on election management. GIS is a unique class of IT that keep track of events, activities, and things, and the location where they happen. GIS can be applied visually in every field, including election management. It can be deployed in election management to achieve the following results. Spatial intelligence to help focus on action to be taken when the need arises and provide the best option. Somebody moving from Asaba to somewhere like Burutu, Niger Delta area, you need to plan your point A to point B. Give you opportunity to focus on actions to enable you adopt the most shortest distance to your location. It ensures clear demarcation of electoral constituencies. How is this related to election management? In the course of this discussion, we'll be having an opportunity to look at maps. This map enables us to identify our wards in polygon. Each of the wards in a particular local government will be demarcated using a particular categories of data in GIS to represent them. Secondly, it makes it easier for us to identify wards and polling units related to election management. GIS gives us the opportunity to perform an overlay. When we bring in the polling unit in point, overlay on what's in each of the local government as polygon. It enables us to view where the location of these polling units are in each of the wards, and those that have high concentration of polling units. Thirdly, ward boundaries are seen clearly, so the extent of jurisdiction is well known. There will be nothing like transgression in the course of voting. It enables us to clearly identify the extent of our wards and our voting areas. It also helps to determine areas where there are gaps and overlaps. This is very key in election management decision making. Election umpire that is responsible with conducting election in Nigeria, at every year to year they have a review of where there are shortfalls in terms of polling units, where there are overlaps in terms of polling units, and how they can be able to improve upon, so that this polling unit can be within the reach of each of the population and eligible voters. So it enables us, how do we identify the gaps? We cannot, using the Excel sheet, we cannot identify the gap. But using map, it enables us to identify the gap where the next polling unit should be. Now, usefulness in determining district accessibility and adequacy of polling units. There are locations that the registered voters are more than the polling units. In this case, GIS will enable us to identify the nearest areas to this population and how they can have access to the polling units. It also provides easiest routes to access the polling units, thereby facilitating easy distribution of personnel and materials. This is very key in logistic planning in election management. Where are the polling units? How do I get to the polling unit? Am I going to the polling unit by road or by rail or by boat? Now, to see, to also understand, in the course of 2015, 2019, 2023, we have had registered voters. These registered voters, we can read it on the pages of newspaper, we can read it through WhatsApp, but with the aid of GIS, we have a regional classification of registered voters. This is for 2023 updated registered voters. And at a glance, we can be able to see the region that have the highest concentration of registered voters and the area that have a low concentration of registered voters. From the map, we can deduce the northwestern part of the country with 22.67 million registered voters against the part of the country with 11.49 million. This is not only aesthetic, but conceptual. Now, the impact of GIS on election management. To its high knowledge of terrain, landmarks, road network, it gives adequate knowledge of voting areas, though aiding security and facilitate accessibility. This boils down to the fact that we have known where is the polling unit. Without knowing where is the polling unit, we cannot be able to plan how to get there, and the mode that we can be able to get there. Usefulness in determining optimal location where planning additional polling units. Was shed more light about that. Efficient and effective means of data and information storage and retrieval. With the help of GIS, election management information will not be in hard copies, it will be in soft copies. It will give us the opportunity to update, It will give us the opportunity to retrieve. It also review and update records faster and more accurate, and is cost effective. Unlike the ways before the introduction of GIS, we have hard copy maps. We know the rigors of going through the hard copy map when it comes to any update. Database generated aid faster and accurate election result computation, though making electoral processes more transparent. With the aid of a database today, it will be very difficult for any officials to be able to manipulate within the election cycle. It also makes the task of election administrators and other stakeholders easier and faster. It also provides a stress-free experience for voters, thereby encouraging high voters turnout. How is this related to election management in Nigeria? A stress-free experience. With the aid of IT today, you can sit down at the forefront of your own, even for the fact that it has not been integrated into our system. If you have a robust spatial data structure base for election data, you can be able to search for your polling unit from the comfort of your home, locate your polling unit, get the update about your voting preferences without even going to visit your polling unit. We can see today, everybody is expected to go to his or her polling unit to check his or her name. It has been pasted around the country. But if we have a robust GIS database from the comfort of our home, we can be able to locate and view our polling units. It also boosts the image of electoral umpire due to improvement and excellent service delivery. Why is it that we have a high concentration of youths today that are ready to vote? It's because the election added in credibility. These are part of the maps that can be able to be generated. Election polling unit profiling. You can be able to identify the polling unit with high concentration of voters and those with low concentration of voters. Next slide. These are maps that depict the distribution of voters within and outside the country. Impact on political parties. Now, election territory and election GIS profiling, productive analysis and reporting on electoral voting preferences in map, phone and door-to-door based voters campaign, GIS predictive modeling, artificial intelligence to predict a party win and lose rate, at a glance view of important campaign metrics, winning and trending local government for political parties, artificial intelligence to predict win. Next slide. With the aid of GIS, we were able to produce a map that depicts the classification of each of the wards in relation to their voting strength. At a glance, we can be able to see Adodota, we can be able to see Abeokuta North as local government with high concentration of registered voters. Next. These are part of the output from GIS that can help us to be able to view the performance on the basis of parties. Next slide. Implementation of GIS in election. For politicians to do well in this challenging terrain, the GIS perform an understanding based on recognizing the terrain, with capacity to provide the following information: the number of settlements within a target area, the population of the targeted settlement, the numbers of polling units within targeted communities, the voting capacity of each polling unit, the location of each description of polling units, electoral collation centers, winning and trending local government, state and local government performing on electoral promises, mapping of underperformance states and local government, mapping of results and of opinion polls. These are areas that GIS can be used in election management. What some of our friends are currently doing is mapping of results of opinion polls. There are situation room, they have computers, they have feedback from these call centers. Instead of presenting the result in written format, this can be formatted into map for visual benefits. Next slide. These are examples of election polling unit profiling in maps. Next slide. Conclusion. The Geographic Information System, no doubt, help us to understand spatial relationship, pattern, challenging threats. Therefore, answer the question related to location. What is it? Condition, types, trend. What has changed? Patterns. What spatial pattern exists? And question related to modeling. What if, and all this and more can be applied to election matters. So, managing electoral data using GIS is not only aesthetic, but conceptual. And to have a very robust election management system in Nigeria, we advise the electoral umpire to come up with election management information system. We can be able to have all election data integrated into a single platform that anybody can be able to access irrespective of location. Thank you. So comments, questions, and observations.
Okay, we can see some hands. Mr. Abdul Sani, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Then followed by Haruna Abdullahi. Yeah, please. You can ask your questions.
Hello, good day, everyone.
Yeah, good
Good
evening.
evening.
Yeah, my questions goes this way. This GIS application we have here, more especially here in the north, we have some areas where there is no network and the people are not well educated on how to use GIS. So how did you think that we can step it down to them? That's my question.
That is, for example, if GIS data are being integrated, that anybody can be able to access using a particular digital platform, and there are no networks. There are 8 people in the community that don't even have smartphone. We can be able to present this data to them in a hard copy format. In some parts of the country, we have network challenges. There are some GPS today that while working, there might not be network. But the moment you get to a closed area where you can be able to access network, you see that most of this data get uploaded. Even in some of the community we are that have fiber network, we even find it difficult sometimes to be able to load and access data. So it will be made easier for everybody if we have a very robust network system. Tope, you can shed more light on it.
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
It's talking about the network system in some of the remote areas. How do they integrate and introduce GIS to those places?
Okay, in some of the remote areas, sorry for the background noise. In some of the remote areas, how do they integrate GIS? Well, it's in different phases. One of the best ways you can integrate GIS. Is it, just to be clear, is it for education or is it for the election or government? Is it for personal individuals or private organizations? Because you know, integration of GIS, is it for lecture, education, or for knowledge? What is that? Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, Mr. Tope, can you please be audible? I can barely hear you.
Okay, I'm asking that the integration of GIS in those areas that are not remote, is it for education purpose or for personal or governmental purpose or for election purpose? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, it's
Can you hear
for
me?
it's for the election purpose. It's for the election purpose.
Okay. Okay, if it is for election purpose, integrating GIS in those remote areas depends on integrating GIS in those remote areas depends on the people that will be involved. For example, places like Bauchi, there's a local government I know in Bauchi called Dazara. Okay, you don't have to just bring in people within, should I say, indigents, but you can just educate people more on the application of GIS and the approach on how they are going to tackle GIS in those areas. So now, first of all, understanding the terrain and the nature of the environment is very important. Okay, understanding the terrain and nature of the environment, having enough data about the settlements and people around there is very, very important. If you notice that the people around there are having voters cards or they have voters cards, yes, definitely there will be need for the approach to those kind of people. So in that case, you them places with high voters card or those with level of votes around that region. Then you can also integrate GIS by mapping them, knowing their locations, and how to involve campaign advertisements to those people, and letting them to know the usefulness of the government for those regions. Then with GIS data, they can give you strategic location on how to plan for marketing with the help of the data. I hope that has answered the question.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Haruna, please you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, thank you very much. My own question goes thus. In electioneering, we know that the units are broken into words by word. Do we really have a detailed map that show each word, the boundary of the word? We know we have local government boundary, but in electioneering, they deal with word. Is there any detailed map, maybe an administrative map of the country, depicting each word, word by word, across the country? Thank you very much. But this will assist much in classifying some other data in GIS.
Good evening, everybody. In response to your question, in 2011, I was privileged to be among the people that bidded for the election constituency delineation project with INEC. There was a proposal to that effect. It was bidded. Some of the contractors won, and they commence the delineation of each of the wards in each of the local government. And what was done then was each of the local government were to present a hard copy drawing of each of their wards in that local government to enable conversion of these hard copies into digital format.
Hello, Mr. Jonathan. Sorry to cut you. Please, the meeting will be ending soon. So, in case we open another new link, you can just go to the website GeoInfotech and chat with the number that ends with 77 for a new link. I've sent the message on the I've sent the message on the chat for the new link. You can also join into the new link in case this one ends. Just in case. I'll send the message
So,
on the chat. So, Mr. Joe, you can continue.